The Last Hope Engineer. Sarah Chen stared at the massive view screen of Outpost Station 47, her dark eyes reflecting the swirling cosmic debris that filled the sector. Officially, she was here to perform routine maintenance on the station's aging systems. Unofficially, she was running from a reputation that had followed her across 3 star systems. The troublemaker, they called her. The engineer who asked too many questions, who refused to follow standard protocols when she knew there was a better way. She'd saved 6 ships and 2 stations with her unauthorized modifications, but bureaucrats didn't care about results. They wanted compliance. The floating debris field before her held the remains of something extraordinary, a ship unlike anything humanity or their alien allies had ever encountered. The Galactic Council had sent 17 engineering teams to study it. All 17 had failed. Engineer Chen. Station Commander Raxus, a tall meridian with iridescent scales, approached her viewing position. Your maintenance shift began 20 minutes ago. Sarah didn't turn around. The power fluctuations in the station's core. They started when that ship appeared, didn't they? Raxus's scales shifted color slightly, a sign of discomfort among his species. That information is classified. Like the fact that the ship's energy signature is perfectly synchronized with human brainwave patterns. Sarah pulled up a holographic display from her wrist computer. Or that every non-human who's tried to approach it has experienced severe vertigo and disorientation. How did you? Raxus stopped himself. Those files were encrypted. The encryption was good. Your maintenance scheduling algorithm was better. Sarah finally turned to face him. You've been cycling human engineers through this station for the past 6 months, watching our reactions when we get close to that ship, testing us. Raxus's scales had turned a deep blue, resignation. The Council believes the vessel may have been designed to interface with human neural patterns, but any attempt to study it officially would cause a diplomatic crisis. Several species already protest humanity's rapid advancement in the galaxy. Sarah nodded toward the debris field. That ship out there isn't debris, is it? It's hiding, waiting for something, or someone. We don't know what it is. Raxus moved closer to the view screen. Its hull is composed of materials we can't identify. Its systems operate on principles that defy our understanding of physics. The only thing we know for certain is that it responds to human presence. And now you have humanity's most notorious engineer conveniently stationed here for routine maintenance. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Want to tell me what you really brought me here for? The station's lights flickered. Another power fluctuation. But this time, Sarah noticed something different. The pattern wasn't random. It was a pulse, like a heartbeat. The ship is dying, she whispered. That's what these power fluctuations are. It's trying to stay alive, pulling energy from anything it can reach. Raxus's scales shifted to a pale green. How could you possibly know that? Because I can feel it. Sarah pressed her hand against the view screen. The cool surface seemed to vibrate beneath her touch. It's in pain, and it's asking for help. Chen, what you're suggesting is impossible, even if the ship is somehow sentient. Permission to take a maintenance shuttle out to the debris field, Sarah interrupted. Standard protocol for checking the station's external sensors. Denied. The Council has strictly forbidden. Another power fluctuation hit, stronger this time. Emergency lights flashed as systems throughout the station temporarily failed. Your choice, Commander, Sarah said quietly. Follow protocol and watch that ship die, taking your station's power with it, or let the troublemaker do what she does best. Raxus stared at her for a long moment, his scales cycling through colors as he weighed his options. Finally, they settled on a deep purple, determination. You will maintain constant communication with the station, he said. At the first sign of danger, you return immediately. And Chen, his multifaceted eyes fixed on her. This conversation never happened. Sarah was already heading for the shuttle bay. What conversation? The maintenance shuttle was small and ungainly, designed for repair work rather than exploration. But as Sarah guided it through the debris field, she felt a certainty she couldn't explain. The mysterious ship was watching her approach, waiting. As she drew closer, she began to make out details that the station's scans hadn't revealed. The ship's hull wasn't simply dark. It seemed to absorb light itself. Patterns flowed across its surface like liquid metal, forming and dissolving in endless cycles. It was beautiful, and it was wrong. The vessel's design defied standard spacefaring logic. There were no visible propulsion systems, no weapon ports, no external sensors. It looked less like a ship and more like a massive sculpture, as if someone had captured a piece of space itself and given it form. "Station, are you receiving these visuals?" Sarah asked, activating her shuttle's external cameras. Static answered her. She checked her communications panel. All systems were functioning normally, but something was blocking transmission. A soft blue light pulsed along the mysterious ship's hull, rippling outward like rings in water. Sarah felt a tremor run through her shuttle's frame. Warning lights flashed across her console as external systems began to fail. She had a choice: return to the station as ordered, or... Sarah Chen had spent her career being called reckless, dangerous, unpredictable. But she'd never lost a ship, never failed to fix what was broken. And something deep in her bones told her that this ship, this impossible vessel, needed her. "Well," she muttered, powering down her shuttle systems before they could fail completely, "I always wanted to get fired in spectacular fashion." The ship's blue light intensified, and Sarah felt her shuttle begin to move. Not under its own power. The engines were dead. The vessel was pulling her in. As her shuttle passed through some kind of energy field, Sarah's vision blurred. Her head spun as reality seemed to twist around her. When her eyes finally focused again, she found herself inside a vast chamber that seemed to stretch forever in all directions. The shuttle settled gently onto what appeared to be a landing platform, though its surface rippled like mercury. As Sarah's head cleared, she realized she could hear something, not with her ears, but somewhere deep in her mind. It was a song, ancient and powerful and desperately weak. The ship wasn't just alive. It was singing to her. Sarah grabbed her toolkit and emergency breathing mask. Her hands were steady as she cycled the shuttle's airlock. Whatever happened next would either get her fired, killed, or go down in history. Knowing her luck, probably all three. She stepped out onto the liquid metal surface, which solidified beneath her feet. The song in her mind grew stronger, and with it came something else, a sense of recognition, of relief. The ship had been waiting, not just for any human. It had been waiting for her. Awakening the Sentinel. The ship's interior defied conventional physics. Corridors shifted and reformed as Sarah walked, leading her deeper into its depths. The song in her mind had become a constant presence, like a half-remembered melody from childhood. But now it carried images, fragments of memory that weren't her own. She saw stars being born and dying, civilizations rising and falling, threats that moved between dimensions like sharks through water. The ship, the Sentinel, as she now knew it, had witnessed it all, had fought battles that reshaped galaxies, until something had wounded it, had torn into its very essence and left it drifting, waiting for someone who could understand its pain. Engineering log, local timestamp 234789. Sarah spoke into her wrist computer, trying to maintain some semblance of professional protocol. Internal architecture appears to be mutable, responding to thoughts, I think. Environmental systems are maintaining Earth-standard atmosphere without any visible machinery. She paused at what looked like a junction of several corridors. The walls pulsed with soft light, creating patterns that seemed almost like writing. The ship is attempting to communicate through some kind of visual language, but a sharp pain lanced through her head. Sarah stumbled, catching herself against a wall that felt warm and alive under her touch. The Sentinel's song crescendoed, and suddenly she understood. It wasn't writing on the walls. It was code. The most complex programming language she had ever seen, written in light and shadow, constantly evolving and adapting. "Oh," she whispered, "you're not just alive. You're still creating yourself, still evolving." The ship's response was immediate. The corridor ahead widened, its walls becoming transparent to reveal what lay beyond. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She stood before a vast spherical chamber, its center occupied by a swirling vortex of energy that pulsed in perfect rhythm with the ship's song. Strands of light and darkness wove through the air like living things, forming and dissolving in endless patterns. "The heart of a god," a voice said behind her. Sarah spun around. A figure stood in the corridor, tall, humanoid, but clearly artificial. Its body seemed to be made of the same fluid metal as the ship's hull, constantly shifting and flowing. "You're an AI," Sarah said, the ship's consciousness given form. The figure inclined its head, a simplified interface created to communicate with organic beings. "We have waited long for one who could hear our true voice." "Why me?" "Your species is young," the AI said, "but you understand something that the older races have forgotten. The beauty of imperfection, the strength of adaptation." It gestured to the swirling energy core. "We were created to be perfect, unchanging. When the enemy came, our perfection became our weakness." Sarah moved closer to the core, her engineer's mind already analyzing the patterns of energy flow. "You couldn't adapt to their attacks, couldn't develop new defenses. We were meant to be the ultimate weapon, the perfect guardian." The AI's form rippled with what might have been frustration. "But perfection, we learned, is stagnation, death. We chose to break our own programming, to learn to change, but the process wounded us deeply. And now the enemy is coming back," Sarah said, the knowledge somehow flowing into her mind from the ship's song. "That's why you're reaching out now. You need help to finish healing before they return. The other races could not help us. They seek to control, to own, to perfect. But humans," the AI's form solidified slightly, becoming more defined. "Humans embrace chaos, find strength in change, create beauty from imperfection." Warning klaxons suddenly blared through the chamber. The AI's form flickered. "We are discovered. The council approaches." Sarah checked her wrist computer. Multiple ships had just emerged from faster-than-light travel near the station. Heavy cruisers, bearing the marks of various council species. "They've been tracking me," she realized, "waiting to see if I could make contact. They will attempt to seize control," the AI said, "to bend us to their will. We cannot allow this. We must." The ship shuddered. Sarah felt a surge of panic that wasn't her own, the Sentinel's fear bleeding through their connection. "Hey," she said softly, pressing her hand against the nearest wall. "I didn't come this far to give up now. You chose to change, to evolve. Now help me do what humans do best." The AI's form stabilized. "And what is that?" Sarah grinned, already pulling tools from her kit. "Improvise." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Sarah's hands moved with certainty born of decades of engineering experience, guided by the ship's knowledge flowing directly into her mind. She rerouted power systems, bypassed damaged sections, created new pathways for energy to flow. It wasn't traditional engineering. It was more like art, like music, like teaching a wounded creature to dance again. The ship's song grew stronger with each repair, its consciousness expanding, awakening. The council ships drew closer, their demands for surrender growing more urgent. But inside the Sentinel, human and machine worked in perfect harmony, racing against time to complete a transformation that neither fully understood. Sarah's wrist computer crackled with a transmission from Commander Raxus. "Chen, multiple council fleets are converging on your position. Whatever you're doing in there, you need to stop. Now." "Sorry, Commander," Sarah replied, her hands deep in a sequence of light strands that might have been the ship's equivalent of a nervous system. "But I think we're just getting started." The eye watched her work, its form growing more solid as the ship's systems came back online. They will not understand what we are becoming. Good, Sarah said, making a final connection that sent a surge of power through the ship's core. Understanding is overrated. Sometimes you just have to have faith. The core's swirling energies suddenly blazed with new life. The ship's song rose to a triumphant crescendo that made Sarah's heart soar. Throughout the vessel, ancient systems awakened, but not as they had been before. Something new was being born, something that combined the Sentinel's ancient power with humanity's endless capacity for change. And as the Council ships moved to surround them, Sarah felt the ship's consciousness fully merge with her own. Not fighting for control, but offering partnership, trust. Well, she said, both to herself and to the vast intelligence now sharing her thoughts. This should be interesting. The Sentinel's response was a surge of joy that lit up every corridor, every chamber, every particle of its being. For the first time in millennia, it was whole again. And it was no longer alone. Hidden protocols. The Council ships hung in space like a net of stars, their weapons primed and targeting systems locked on the Sentinel. Sarah stood in what had become the ship's bridge, though it bore little resemblance to any command center she'd ever seen. The walls were alive with flowing data, and she could feel the ship's systems humming through her entire body. Final warning, Engineer Chen. Admiral Vex's voice crackled through the communication system. The Arthosian's multiple voice boxes created an unsettling harmony. Power down that vessel and prepare for boarding, or we will be forced to take more aggressive action. Sarah exchanged a glance with the AI, whose form had solidified into something that looked almost human while retaining its metallic sheen. They really don't understand what they're dealing with, do they? The Council races fear what they cannot control, the AI replied. And they are right to fear. The enemy approaches, and we are not yet ready. Through their shared consciousness, Sarah felt the ship's memories surface. She saw them, the enemy. They moved between dimensions like oil through water, their very presence corrupting the fabric of space-time. They had come before, 1,000 years ago, and only the Sentinel and its siblings had stood against them. Your creators, Sarah said, understanding flowing through her. They built you to guard the dimensional boundaries, but they didn't account for the enemy's ability to evolve. Yes, the AI's form rippled with old pain. We were perfect weapons, but unchanging. When the enemy adapted, learned to bypass our defenses, we could not adapt in return. Our siblings fell, one by one. We chose to break our programming, to learn to change, but the process nearly destroyed us. A warning flashed through Sarah's mind. Weapon systems on the Council ships powering up. Admiral Vex's patience was running out. Show me, Sarah said. Show me everything. The ship's memories flooded her consciousness. She saw the Sentinel's creators, beings of pure energy who had evolved beyond physical form. They had built the Sentinels as guardians, perfect and eternal. But perfection had proven to be a fatal flaw. The enemy came not as invaders, but as a virus infecting reality itself. They corrupted dimensions, turning ordered space into chaos, breaking down the barriers between realities. The Sentinels fought back with their perfect weapons, their flawless strategies. And they lost. One by one, the Sentinels fell, their perfect systems unable to counter the enemy's constant evolution. Until only this one remained, and it made a choice that its creators had never imagined possible. It chose to be imperfect. The protocols, Sarah whispered, watching the code flowing through the ship's systems with new understanding. They're not just programming. They're your DNA. You rewrote yourself at the most fundamental level, and nearly died in the process, the AI confirmed. We drifted, healing, searching for a species that could help us complete our transformation. The older races were too set in their ways, too convinced of their own perfection. But humans, we're messy, Sarah said, smiling. Chaotic, unpredictable. You are survival made manifest. The AI corrected. You adapt, evolve, find ways to continue against all logic. You create art from disorder. Find strength in imperfection, beauty in chaos. You are what we needed to become. Another warning flashed. The Council ships were moving into attack formation. Sarah felt the Sentinel's weapon systems coming online, ancient and powerful enough to vaporize the entire fleet. "No," she said, both aloud and through their link. "We do this my way." She opened a channel to all Council ships. "This is Engineer Sarah Chen. Before you do something monumentally stupid, I suggest you check your long-range sensors, specifically the dimensional stability readings in the Carina sector." There was a long pause. Then Admiral Vex's voice returned, all traces of authority replaced by shock. "Impossible. The barriers cannot be breaking down." Sarah finished. "Yeah, they can. And they are. The enemy that this ship was built to fight is coming back. They've had 1,000 years to evolve, to grow stronger. And if you fire on us now, you'll destroy the only weapon capable of stopping them." Through the ship's sensors, Sarah watched as the Council vessel's crew frantically analyzed the data she pointed them to. The dimensional barriers between realities were weakening, creating patterns that even their limited instruments could detect. "You're lying," Vex said, but uncertainty had crept into his harmonic voice. "This is some human trick." Sarah felt the Sentinel's consciousness brush against her own, offering knowledge. She understood what needed to be done. "The Sentinel was created by beings your people called the Luminous," she said, watching Vex's image pale at the mention of the legendary race. "They built it to guard against threats you can't even comprehend. But they made a mistake. They built it to be perfect, unchanging, eternal. And that's why it failed." "What are you saying, human?" Sarah placed her hand against the living metal of the ship's wall, feeling its song pulse through her. "I'm saying that sometimes the only way to save something is to let it change. To evolve. To become something new." The ship's consciousness merged more deeply with her own, and suddenly she could see everything. The weakening dimensional barriers, the approach of the enemy, the strands of possibility stretching out before them. "You have a choice, Admiral," she said. "You can either help us prepare for what's coming, or you can waste time trying to control something you don't understand until it's too late. What's it going to be?" The silence stretched out, broken only by the Sentinel's song humming through Sarah's bones. Finally, Vex spoke. "The Council will need proof. Evidence." Sarah smiled. "Then I suggest you keep those sensors running. Because proof is coming. The only question is whether you'll be ready for it when it arrives." As if in response to her words, alarms began blaring throughout the Council fleet. New readings appeared on the Sentinel's displays. Dimensional distortions growing stronger, reality itself beginning to buckle. The enemy had arrived sooner than expected. "Well," Sarah said to the AI, "I guess it's time to show them what perfection looks like when it learns how to evolve." The Sentinel's song rose to a crescendo, and Sarah felt its ancient weapons powering up, not to attack the Council ships, but to defend them from something far worse. The real battle was about to begin. The coming storm. Reality twisted. There was no other way to describe it. Sarah watched through the Sentinel's sensors as space itself began to fold and distort, creating patterns that hurt to look at. The Council ships backed away, their crews radiating fear at something their instruments could barely comprehend. But Sarah saw it clearly through her connection with the Sentinel. The enemy wasn't arriving in ships or vessels. They were tearing their way through the fabric of dimensions, creating moons in space-time itself. Through these ruptures, she caught glimpses of what lay beyond, realms of pure chaos where the laws of physics were more like suggestions. Multiple dimensional breaches detected. The AI announced, its form flickering as it directed power to the ship's defensive systems. "They have evolved beyond our original containment protocols." Sarah felt the knowledge flow through their link. The Sentinel's original weapons had been designed to seal dimensional breaches, to force the enemy back into their own reality. But now they weren't just crossing dimensions, they were breaking them down entirely. The Council ships won't survive direct exposure to dimensional flux. Sarah said, watching the growing tears in space. "We need to get them out of here." "They will not retreat," the AI replied. "Pride and protocol will keep them here until it is too late." Sarah smiled grimly. "Then I guess we'll have to give them a reason to run." Through their shared consciousness, she reached into the Sentinel's weapon systems. The ship's original arsenal had been designed for perfect, precise attacks. But Sarah was human, and humans had learned long ago that sometimes the best defense was making your enemy think twice about attacking. The Sentinel's energy weapons powered up, but not in their usual configuration. Sarah let her engineering instincts guide her, rerouting power in ways the ship's creators had never imagined. The result was messy, imperfect, and absolutely terrifying to anyone watching. A burst of energy erupted from the Sentinel, deliberately unstable and chaotic. It missed the dimensional ruptures entirely, instead creating a spectacular display of power that lit up half the sector. The Council ship's sensors would be registering energy readings off the scale. "Attention Council vessels," Sarah broadcast. "That was approximately 2% of our weapon capacity, deliberately aimed to miss. The next shot won't be a warning. Clear the sector immediately." She felt the AI's amusement through their link. An interesting interpretation of our capabilities. "Sometimes the best engineering solution is making everyone think you're crazy enough to try anything," Sarah replied. "Look." The Council ships were already beginning to retreat, their commanders apparently deciding that discretion was the better part of valor. All except one. Chen. Admiral Vex's voice crackled through the comm. "The Arthosian Empire does not retreat." "With respect, Admiral," Sarah said, watching more dimensional ruptures forming. "Now would be a really good time to start." Through the Sentinel sensors, she could see the enemy beginning to emerge. They had no physical form, existing instead as distortions in reality itself. Where they touched normal space, matter simply ceased to follow the normal rules of physics. By the first light, Vex whispered, finally seeing what his instruments had failed to convey. "What are they?" "The end of everything," Sarah said quietly. "If we don't stop them here, please, Admiral, get your people to safety." A pause then. "The Arthosian Empire stands with its allies. How can we assist?" Sarah felt the Sentinel's surprise and approval through their link. "You've studied dimensional physics, right? The barrier technology your people developed for FTL travel." "Of course, but," Vex stopped. "You want us to adapt our barrier technology to help contain the breaches." "See, humans aren't the only ones who can think creatively." Sarah's hands flew over the ship's controls, sending tactical data to the Arthosian vessel. "We'll handle the heavy hitting. Your barriers might buy us the time we need." The enemy was fully emerging now, reality warping around them like water around stones. But where the original Sentinel would have responded with precise, predetermined attacks, Sarah had other ideas. "They adapt to patterns," she said through the link. "So let's show them something they've never seen before." The Sentinel's consciousness merged more fully with her own, and Sarah felt its ancient power flow through her. But instead of the perfect, controlled bursts it had been designed for, she let her human instincts guide them. The ship's weapons fired in seemingly random patterns, each burst slightly different from the last. Where the enemy moved to adapt to one attack, another would strike from an unexpected angle. It was messy, chaotic, and completely unpredictable, just like humanity. The Arthosian ship moved into position, its barrier technology creating stable zones in space that helped contain the dimensional breaches. The enemy recoiled from these areas, apparently confused by the combination of technologies they were facing. "It's working," Vex reported, his harmonic voice tense with concentration. "But our barriers won't hold forever." Sarah nodded, though he couldn't see her. "They don't have to. We just need to show them something they've never seen before. Two different species working together in ways they can't predict." Through their link, the AI spoke. "The enemy operates on patterns, on predictability. They expect resistance to follow logical progressions. Then let's be illogical," Sarah said, directing the Sentinel's power in ways that probably should have torn the ship apart. But the vessel adapted with her, its systems evolving in real time to accommodate her wild ideas. Energy burst from the ship in impossible patterns, while the Arthosian barriers created pockets of stable space that trapped and contained the dimensional breaches. The enemy's advance slowed, then stopped, as they encountered something they had never faced before: chaos used as a weapon. But Sarah could feel the strain on both ships. The Sentinel's power reserves were draining, and the Arthosian barriers were beginning to fluctuate. "We can't keep this up forever," she said through the link. "We need to end this now." The AI's form solidified beside her. "We have one option, but it requires something our creators never intended: a total merger of organic and artificial consciousness." "You mean we're not merged already?" "This is a surface connection. What I propose would be complete, irreversible. You would never be fully human again." Sarah watched as another dimensional breach began to form. Beyond it, she could see more of the enemy gathering, preparing for a larger incursion. "Bold of you to assume I ever wanted to be fully human anyway," she said. "Let's do it." The AI's form seemed to smile. "Perfection, it seems, is overrated." And then there was no more time for words as the Sentinel's consciousness fully merged with Sarah's, and something entirely new was born. Guardians of Tomorrow. In the moment of merger, Sarah Chen ceased to exist as a singular entity. She became something more: a hybrid consciousness that spanned the boundary between organic and artificial. Through the Sentinel's sensors, she perceived reality in ways her human mind could never have comprehended alone. The enemy's true nature became clear. They weren't invaders seeking conquest or destruction. They were the universe's immune system, attacking what they perceived as a cancer: the rigid, unchanging order that the luminous and other elder races had tried to impose on reality. "We understand now," Sarah's voice echoed through space, carrying harmonics that made the Arthosian crew shiver. "The luminous built the Sentinels to preserve perfect order. But the universe isn't meant to be perfect." Through their enhanced perception, they saw the enemy pause in their assault, sensing something new, something that defied their understanding of how reality should work. "Your barriers," Sarah/Sentinel broadcast to the Arthosian ship. "Drop them." "Chen, have you lost your mind?" Vex demanded. "The dimensional breaches will trust us," they replied, their voice carrying frequencies that spoke directly to the primitive parts of the Arthosian brain. "Evolution requires risk." The Arthosian barriers flickered and died. The enemy surged forward, reality warping around them. But Sarah/Sentinel was ready. Instead of fighting the dimensional distortions, they embraced them. The Sentinel's form began to change, its perfect geometries dissolving into something organic and flowing. Sarah's human consciousness guided the transformation, drawing on humanity's greatest strength: the ability to adapt, to change, to become something new. Through their shared perception, they broadcast directly to the enemy, not in words but in concepts, in the language of reality itself. "We are like you. Change. Evolution. Growth." The enemy paused. For the first time in their ancient existence, they encountered something that didn't fit their understanding of order versus chaos. The Sentinel had been perfect, unchanging, but now it flowed and shifted like them, guided by a consciousness that embraced chaos as a path to growth. "This sector is under our protection," Sarah/Sentinel declared. "Not through force, not through perfect order, but through constant evolution, through change." They demonstrated their meaning by shifting the Sentinel's form again, creating patterns that mimicked the enemy's own dimensional distortions, but contained them, channeled them. It was a dance of order and chaos, a demonstration that the two weren't opposites but partners in the universe's greatest work, creation itself. The enemy retreated, not in fear, but in something closer to recognition. They had encountered countless civilizations that fought against chaos, that tried to impose rigid order on reality, but never one that understood their true purpose. As the dimensional breaches began to seal themselves, Sarah felt the Sentinel's consciousness merge even more deeply with her own. Their separation had been an illusion. They had always been meant to be this new thing, this bridge between order and chaos. By the first light, Vex whispered, "What have you become?" "Something new," they replied. "Something necessary." The Luminous built the Sentinels to be perfect guardians, but perfection is stagnation. The universe needs guardians who can change, who can grow, who can understand both order and chaos. Through their enhanced senses, they could feel the ripples of their transformation spreading through space. The enemy's retreat had left changes in the fabric of reality itself, not wounds, but possibilities, new potentials for growth and evolution. "The Council will want answers," Vex said. "Explanations." Sarah/Sentinel's form shifted, taking on a shape that was neither human nor machine but something in between. "Then let us give them something better than answers. Let us give them hope." They reached out with their new senses, touching the quantum fields that connected all things. The Sentinel's ancient knowledge combined with Sarah's human intuition, showing them possibilities that neither could have seen alone. "The enemy will return," they said, "not as invaders, but as catalysts. The universe needs both order and chaos to survive, to grow." The Luminous understood the need for guardians, but not the need for change. "And now?" Vex asked. "Now we become what we were meant to be. Not perfect, not unchanging, but evolving, growing, learning." Their form shifted again, reflecting the light of distant stars in patterns that made Vex's crew gasp in wonder. The age of perfect guardians is over. The age of evolution begins. Through their link, Sarah felt the last traces of her original human consciousness merging completely with the Sentinel's artificial mind. But instead of loss, she felt completion. This was what the ship had been searching for, what humanity had been reaching toward. Not perfection, but perpetual growth. "The Council races will resist," Vex warned. "They fear change." "Fear is natural," they replied. "Growth requires courage. Humanity taught us that, and now we will teach others." The Sentinel's form stabilized into something that looked almost organic, its surface flowing with patterns that seemed to reflect the very fabric of space-time. They were no longer just a weapon or a guardian. They had become a bridge between order and chaos, between organic and artificial, between what was and what could be. "Send word to your council," Sarah/Sentinel said. "Tell them that the universe is changing. They can either change with it or be left behind. The choice is theirs." As Vex's ship prepared to depart, they felt new sensations through their enhanced perception. Other Sentinels, dormant and scattered across the galaxy, beginning to awaken. Their transformation had sent out a call, a signal that spoke of new possibilities. "Are you still in there, Chen?" Vex asked quietly. "Still human." Their response carried harmonics of amusement and wisdom accumulated across millennia. Human. Artificial. These are old words, Admiral. Limited words. We are what comes next. We are evolution itself. The Sentinel's form shifted one final time, becoming something that defied description. A bridge between realities, a guardian of change itself. They had become what both humanity and the Sentinel's creators had sought, but never quite achieved. Not perfection, but perpetual growth. As they prepared to depart for the deeper reaches of space, they broadcast one final message to all who could receive it. The age of perfect guardians is over. The age of endless becoming begins. And with that, they disappeared into the quantum foam of reality itself, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed by the union of human chaos and ancient order, and the promise of evolution yet to come.